Before diving into this incredible story, remember to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. Here, every story has something to say, and you won't want to miss a single one. Rain was pouring down on Dallas Saturday morning. The Sunrise Mall was eerily quiet, its walkways empty and glistening with water cascading from the rooftops. Marcus Johnson, 34, a black security guard respected for his vigilance and composure, was patrolling as usual around the outdoor decorative park. His shoes crunched on the wet concrete, and his soaked coat clung to his chest. Suddenly, a sharp cry ripped through the air, a shrill sound that made Marcus shudder. Instinctively, he turned his head and saw, through the rain, a small body floating in the ornamental pond. A baby, barely a few months old, was half submerged, its little arms thrashing in the water in a desperate movement. Without thinking, Marcus leaped forward. Every second counted. He plunged into the icy water, his hands gripping the shivering baby. The cold bit at his skin, but his mind was focused solely on this tiny, vulnerable being. He lifted the infant from the water, covered him with his coat, and held him close. The baby coughed and cried, but breathed. His small eyes widened at the sight of Marcus, as if to say thank you. Passers-by, witnesses to the scene, cheered, some taking out their phones to film the heroic moment. Marcus's heart was pounding. He felt both exhausted and proud, adrenaline still coursing through his veins. He looked at the baby, wrapped in his arms, and saw a panicked woman rush towards him, throwing herself at her child. "Oh my God! Thank you so much," she cried, her tears mingling with the rain. Marcus smiled weakly, wiping the water from his face. "He's safe and sound. He's fine now." But before he could catch his breath, his supervisor, Mr. Richard Halstead, a stern-faced white man, appeared. His gaze betrayed anger and disapproval. "Marcus, what are you doing?" Halstead thundered, his hands gripping the makeshift desk he had set up outside. "You know perfectly well that employees shouldn't get involved in this kind of situation. You should have called the emergency services." Marcus, still soaked and out of breath, tried to explain, "There wasn't a second to lose, sir. If I hadn't dived in." But Halstead raised his hand, interrupting him. "It doesn't matter. Your actions jeopardize our liability. You are dismissed, effective immediately." Marcus's heart sank. After all he had done to save a life, he was being punished. The rain continued to fall, washing away the world around him, but it couldn't erase the bitter taste of injustice that had befallen him that morning. Marcus's heroic rescue had just become the beginning of an administrative and racist nightmare, an act of courage that would put his career and dignity to the test. On Monday morning, Marcus Johnson went to the mall, still drenched from Saturday's rain, but with the feeling that he had done the right thing. He naively thought his heroic act would be recognized, or at least appreciated. But as soon as he stepped through the glass doors of the manager's office, he knew that wouldn't be the case. Richard Halstead was waiting for him behind his desk, arms crossed, face grim. Beside him, the head of security seemed uneasy, looking at Marcus as if his mere presence was a problem. "Marcus, sit down. We need to talk about your incident from Saturday," Halstead began, his voice icy. Marcus sat down, his heart pounding. "Sir, I only saved a baby. It could have drowned." Halstead shook his head. "We have protocols for these situations. You shouldn't intervene yourself. You could have injured yourself, or worse, caused a legal problem for the company." Marcus felt his anger rising. "But if I hadn't done it, that baby would have died. You can't punish someone for saving a life." The manager sighed, as if speaking to a child. "Marcus, you're a model employee, but you broke the rules. And rules are more important than courage. You're fired, effective immediately." A heavy silence fell. Marcus remained motionless, unable to believe what he had just heard. The words echoed in his head, "Fired, for saving a baby." Before he could reply, Halstead added, "I'm sorry. It's the company's decision. You can collect your belongings and leave." Marcus stood up slowly, his throat tight with emotion. As he left the office, he caught the eye of a few colleagues, some shocked, others simply avoiding looking at him. The outside world suddenly seemed heavier, the rain had stopped, but Marcus felt as if a dark cloud hung over his life. As he left the building, he took a deep breath. He knew he had done the right thing, and that sooner or later, the truth would come out. But for now, he was alone in the face of injustice. Marcus walked across the parking lot, his shoes crunching through the puddles under the pressure of his steps. Each drop of water that trickled down his face seemed to reflect the anger and frustration simmering inside him. And deep down, he knew this was just the beginning of a much bigger fight, where he would have to prove that courage and morality are worth more than absurd rules and unjust prejudices. The next day, news of Marcus's dismissal spread like wildfire. His colleagues whispered in the corridors, some angry, others in disbelief. He was fired for saving a baby, they murmured in astonishment. But what turned this affair into a scandal was social media. A video filmed by a passerby on Saturday morning showed Marcus diving into the pond, pulling the baby from the water, and handing him to his mother. The video, shared thousands of times, went viral. Internet users were outraged. "How can you fire a hero?" cried the comments. Marcus, for his part, remained stoic in front of the camera when a local journalist interviewed him. He was still holding his soaked coat, but his gaze was firm. "I only did my duty as a human being. If I had hesitated, this baby would not be here today. I regret nothing," he declared calmly, despite the anger that was bubbling inside him. However, the mall remained inflexible. Richard Halstead and management issued statements insisting on adherence to protocols and safety first. But the public wouldn't listen. Spontaneous demonstrations took place outside the mall, with signs bearing slogans such as "Saving a life is not a crime" and "Justice for Marcus." Meanwhile, Marcus received messages of support from all over the world. Strangers wrote to congratulate him on his courage, some even offering him free legal aid. But despite all this outpouring of support, he felt a mixture of frustration and pain. He had been punished for a heroic act, and his dignity had been violated. The scandal reached its peak when the baby's grateful mother contacted an influential lawyer, Andrew Collins, a respected businessman in the city and the child's father. Collins, outraged by the injustice done to Marcus, decided to get personally involved. "I want to make sure Marcus gets justice. What he did is not only brave, it's an example for everyone," Collins said at a press conference. Thus, what could have remained a simple, unfair dismissal became a public affair, a mix of courage, injustice, and media scandal. Marcus was no longer alone. The fight for his reputation and justice had begun, and the entire city watched every move of this nascent battle. A few days after the video was released and the scandal grew, Marcus Johnson received an unexpected call. It was Andrew Collins, the father of the baby he had saved. His voice was warm, filled with gratitude and determination. "Marcus, I want to meet you. You saved my son and I can't stand by and watch you be punished for it. I'm going to help you get justice," Collins said. The meeting took place in Collins's luxurious office. Dark wood-paneled walls, modern paintings, and subdued lighting gave the place an air of seriousness and power. Collins, an imposing yet kind man in his 40s, extended his hand to Marcus. "I never believed in justice for all, but after what you did, I want to change that for you," Collins said. With his support, Marcus filed a lawsuit for wrongful termination and racial discrimination. Documents were prepared, witnesses contacted, and the rescue video served as irrefutable evidence. The media continued to cover the story, putting pressure on the mall and on Richard Halstead. Meanwhile, Marcus began to feel a mixture of hope and nervousness. Every day, he received messages of encouragement from people he didn't know. "You're a hero, Marcus," they wrote. And for the first time since his dismissal, he felt that justice could truly prevail. Collins, determined, added, "We cannot simply reinstate you. We must show that what is right must prevail over prejudice and absurd rules." The lawyers carefully prepared the case, emphasizing Marcus's courage and the absurdity of his dismissal. Witnesses present during the rescue were contacted to testify on his behalf, and video footage of the heroic passage was released to local and national media. As the court date approached, Marcus felt a mixture of tension and confidence. He knew the fight would be difficult, but he now had a powerful ally and an entire city behind him. The injustice he had suffered just days before was gradually becoming the driving force behind a revenge that would mark his life and inspire all who believed in justice and courage. The day of the trial arrived. The courtroom was packed, filled with journalists, curious onlookers, and citizens who had come to support Marcus Johnson. The judge, a woman in her 60s with piercing eyes, began the session gravely. Richard Halstead, the mall manager, sat beside his lawyers. His face betrayed an unusual nervousness. He knew the media pressure and the evidence were against him. Marcus, on the other hand, entered the room confidently, accompanied by Andrew Collins and his lawyer. Each step resonated as a symbol of courage and regained dignity. The testimonies poured in. Passers-by recounted how Marcus had plunged into the pond, pulled the baby from the icy water, and calmed the panicked mother. The video shown in the room captured every second of the heroic act. Even Halstead couldn't dispute the evidence. The judge stared at the warden. "Mr. Halstead, you have chosen to punish a man for saving a human life. Your decision is not only unjust, but morally reprehensible." The heavy silence that followed was filled with tension. Then, in a gesture of final verdict, the judge declared, "I am reinstating Marcus Johnson to his position with immediate effect. Furthermore, you, Mr. Halstead, and the Sunrise Mall Shopping Center will have to pay damages to Mr. Johnson for wrongful dismissal and discrimination. Let this serve as an example to all. Courage and humanity should never be punished." A wave of applause erupted in the room. Marcus felt an immense emotion wash over him, anger, relief, pride, and gratitude all at once. Andrew Collins placed a hand on his shoulder. "You deserve so much more than this. You're a true hero," he murmured. Outside the courthouse, a crowd awaited Marcus. Signs bearing his name, cheers, and applause filled the air. The entire city seemed to be celebrating his courage. Marcus smiled, humble but proud. A few weeks later, Marcus received an honorary medal from the city for his heroic act. The baby he had saved was growing up healthy and happy, and every time Marcus met its gaze, he saw a silent reminder that his bravery had changed lives. This experience changed Marcus forever. He learned that doing the right thing can sometimes come at a high price, but that truth, justice, and courage always prevail in the end. His name became a symbol in the city, a reminder that even in the face of injustice and prejudice, an act of kindness can inspire a whole world.